Growing in Messiah. Birth is a moment of joy. A seed germinates, and the appearance of those first two leaves makes the gardener happy. A baby is born, and its first scream announces to the world that here is a new life to reckon with. Growth, continual, constant, maturing, and fruit-bearing growth is essential to life. Without it, birth has no meaning or purpose or destiny. To grow is an inseparable equation of life, both physical and spiritual. Life begins with death. Perhaps the most basic and unique principle about Christian life is that it begins with death. First, the death of Messiah on the cross. Second, the death of self. As a result, third, we walk in newness of life. Life begins with death, death of Messiah. The cross is central to Elohim's plan of salvation. Without it, Satan and his demonic forces would not have been defeated. The problem of sin would not have been solved, and death would not have been crushed. Life begins with death, death of Messiah. The apostle's graphic description in Colossians is noteworthy. First, Messiah disarmed the principalities and powers of evil. Second, the cross made Satan and his cohorts a public spectacle before the universe. Third, the cross has ensured final and eschatological victory over Satan, sin, and death. Life begins with death, death of Messiah. The blood of Yeshua then assures forgiveness from sin and casts the seed for newness of growth. One of the first aspects of this newness and growth in the Christian life is reconciliation. The cross is Elohim's instrument for effecting humans' reconciliation with Him. Life begins with death, death of Messiah. Reconciliation with Elohim immediately opens up the second phase of the redemptive growth process, reconciliation with our fellow humans. One of the beautiful pictures at the cross is the variety of people who crowded around there. Thus, the cross initiated victory over Satan and sin and consequently brought new life in Messiah. Life begins with death, death of self. A second important aspect of Christian newness and growth is death to the old self. Christian life does not begin with birth. It begins with death. Until self dies, until self is crucified, there is no beginning at all. There must be a radical, deliberate, total surgery of self. Life begins with death, living a new life. A third aspect of growing in Messiah is living the new life. One of the great misunderstandings of Christian life is that salvation is a free gift of Elohim's grace. That's the end of the story. It is not grace is free, but grace costs Elohim his son's life. Free grace does not mean cheap grace. Cheap grace is the preaching of forgiveness without requiring repentance, baptism without church discipline, communion without confession, absolution without personal confession. Cheap grace is grace without discipleship, grace without the cross, grace without Jesus, Messiah, Yeshua Messiah, living and incarnate. Growing in Messiah, therefore, is a growth in maturity, so that day by day we reflect the will of Messiah and walk the way of Messiah. What are the hallmarks of this mature life and the signs of its constant growth? Without exhausting the list, we can reflect on 7 such hallmarks. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah. When the Spirit of Elohim takes possession of the heart, it transforms the life. Sinful thoughts are put away. Evil deeds are are renounced. Love, humility, and peace take the place of anger, envy, and strife. The blessing comes when by faith the soul surrenders itself to Elohim. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah, a life of spirit. Paul describes this spirit-empowered life as one that is spiritually growing and maturing. Such maturity will reject the works of the flesh and embrace and produce the fruit of the Spirit. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah, a life of love and unity. Christian life is a life of unity, a life reconciled to Elohim and to the one and reconciled to one's fellow beings on the other. As that person grows and matures, the glorious truth of reconciliation, love, and unity shines brighter and brighter in both individual and corporate expressions of Christian life. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah, life of love and unity. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, Messiah has shown that your neighbor does not mean merely one of the church or faith to which we belong. It has no reference to race, color, or class distinction. Our neighbor is every person who needs our help. Our neighbor is everyone who is one property of Elohim. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah, life of study. Food is a basic essential for growth. The function of any living organism requires adequate and constant nutrition, so it is in spiritual growth. But where do we find our spiritual food? Primarily from two sources: constant communion with Elohim through the study of His Word and through cultivating a life of prayer. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah, a life of prayer. If Elohim's word is the bread that nourishes our soul, prayer is the bread that keeps our soul alive. Paul considers prayer so important in Messiah's Christian life and growth that he mentions six fundamental principles. Pray always, pray with supplication in the Spirit, pray in the Spirit, pray watchfully, pray with perseverance, and pray for all saints. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah, a life of prayer. Prayer is one of the most essential duties. Without it, you cannot maintain a Christian life, Christian walk. It elevates, strengthens, and ennobles. It is the soul talking with Elohim. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah, a life of fruit bearing. Fruit bearing is an important aspect of Christian growth. Salvation by grace is often misunderstood as denial of obedience and fruit bearing nothing. Nothing can be further from biblical truth. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah, life of fruit bearing. We are not saved to do what we please. We are saved to live in accordance with Elohim's will. There is nothing legalistic and hence unnecessary about obedience to the law, but it is the natural sequence to Elohim's gracious liberation from sin. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah, life of spiritual warfare. Christian discipleship is not a journey of ease. We are engaged in a warfare that is real and dangerous. But the angels of the Lord are engaged in the ministry of serving His followers, delivering them from evil and guiding them in spiritual growth. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah, a life of spiritual warfare. Elohim, however, has not left us alone in this warfare. He has provided us victory in and through Messiah Yeshua. He has given us well-tested armor with which to face the enemy. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah, a life of worship, witness, and hope. Christian growth does not take place in a vacuum. It takes place on the one hand within the community of the redeemed and on the other as a witness to the community that needs to be redeemed. Without corporate worship, we miss the identity and arena of our fellowship, and it is in this fellowship and interpersonal relationship with others that we mature and grow. Hallmarks of growing in Messiah, a life of worship, witness, and hope. To the humble, believing soul, the house of Elohim on earth is the gate of heaven. The song of praise, the prayer, the words spoken by Messiah representatives are Elohim's appointed agencies to prepare a people for the church above, for the loftier worship into which there can enter nothing that defile it.